I walked into the cafe looking for a quiet place to spend my lunch break. Among the crowd, I noticed a girl with long dark hair sitting at a table by the window. Her blue eyes were intently reading a book. I approached and asked if there was a seat available, and she smiled as she agreed. We started talking about the book she was reading, and surprisingly, I realized that this conversation made me feel alive. Lily spoke softly and a little shyly, but with each word her eyes lit up more and more. After lunch, I suggested we meet again the next day. Lily thought for a moment, but then nodded and smiled. It was such a sincere smile that it warmed my heart. For several weeks, we met at this cafe during our lunch breaks. Each time, I felt like I didn't want these moments to end. We talked about everything in the world, from work issues to favorite movies. Once, during a conversation, our hands accidentally touched. I felt my heart beat faster and caught the eye of Lily, who looked away in embarrassment. But she didn't take her hands away, and I carefully covered hers with mine. More and more often, I found myself just staring at her without taking my eyes off it. Her gaze became for me an invisible thread that kept me close. Once she noticed this and laughed, but then her look changed. It became warmer, gentler. It was an evening after work when I realized I was in love. Lily left the cafe to call someone, and I watched as she stood outside, surrounded by the lights of the city, with a slight sadness on her face. I could not contain my feelings any longer. One evening, after meeting in a cafe, I walked Lily home. When she turned to say goodbye, I gently touched her face and kissed her. It was a soft, timid kiss, and her lips responded warmly. The next morning we met outside the office, as agreed. It would seem like an ordinary day, but what happened the night before changed everything. Lily came up to me, a little nervous, but her eyes were shining. I felt my chest warm as she squeezed my hand for a moment and whispered, "Good morning." We both tried not to show it in front of others, but it seemed to me that the whole world was looking at us differently now. Every day we found time for small, secret meetings. On her lunch break, Lily often climbed up to the roof of the office, where we could be together, away from prying eyes. Each such meeting was like a breath of fresh air, an opportunity to feel peace in the midst of work chaos. We sat next to each other, shared experiences, laughed, and made plans for the future, even if they seemed illusory. One day, during one of our meetings on the roof, Lily suddenly asked me what would happen if someone saw us. Her voice sounded unsure and her eyes clouded with fear. I didn't know what to say. She looked at me with a pained smile, and I realized that we both felt this anxiety, but were afraid to express it. We knew that our relationship would not be accepted at work, and that every day could be the last day of our secret. The first suspicions began to appear among colleagues. Once we were returning to the office after having lunch together, when our boss, seeing us together, raised his eyebrows slightly. It was only for a brief moment, but his gaze was so piercing that I wanted to retreat immediately. We smiled as usual and quickly parted ways, but our hearts were beating wildly, and there was a feeling that we were beginning to be noticed. After a few days, Lily started avoiding me. She did not answer messages and tried to go home quickly after work. I stopped her outside the office, and we had our first fight. She was afraid that our secret might be revealed, and I tried to convince her that everything was under control. But even as she tried to control herself, I could see tears in her eyes, and it hurt more than any words could say. I looked for her all day, but she didn't answer. I couldn't leave it like that and went to her house, but on the way it started to rain. And just like in the movies, I found her under a tree near the park where we sometimes walked. Lily stood with an umbrella, looking at the rain, as if trying to find answers in it. I walked up to her, soaking wet, and told her that I couldn't do it without her. She looked at me, and it seemed to me that the whole world stopped for a moment. Then she carefully raised the umbrella, hiding us both under its small, cozy roof, and our lips met again. A few days after our reconciliation, we decided to spend the weekend together. It was a sunny day, and we went out into nature where no one could see us. We walked through the park, holding hands, laughing at little things, and eating ice cream. Lily looked so happy as she ran through the flower meadow, as if she had been freed from all her worries. At that moment, I realized that I would do anything to see her smile every day. But happiness could not last forever. After that wonderful day, we had to go back to the office, where we had to hide our feelings again. I noticed that Lily had become more cautious, and that worried me. She rarely went out on lunch breaks with me, always inventing excuses to avoid our secret meetings. I realized that her fear did not disappear but only grew. Our suspicions were justified. One day we were sitting on the roof, as usual, when the door suddenly opened and our boss appeared before us. His eyes gleamed maliciously, and his expression was cold and commanding. He didn't say a word, but it was enough to understand. Our secret is revealed. Lily bowed her head, not daring to look up, and I could only squeeze her hand tighter, showing that we would get through this together. The next day, the office was buzzing with rumors. Everyone knew about us, and every close look from colleagues seemed like needles pricking our hearts. Lily tried to remain professional, but I could see her hands shaking as she answered the customers' questions. It was hard for me to control myself, too, but I knew I had to be strong for her. After work, we went out together, and, unable to bear it, she cried, burying her face in my shoulder. The boss called us both in for a conversation. He was sitting behind a large table, looking serious and reserved. Said that such a relationship was against company policy and strongly advised us to stop meeting if we wanted to keep our jobs. I saw Lily's eyes light up with pain for a moment, but she quickly composed herself. I felt it was a moment of choice. We either listen to him or we fight for our feelings. After this conversation, we went to the park, and Lily was silent the whole way. When we sat down on the bench, she finally said that she didn't know if she could go on like this. There was so much doubt and pain in her voice that I understood how hard it was for her to fight her fears. But I knew one thing. I couldn't lose her. I took her hands and said that no matter how many obstacles there are, I will always be there for you. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and softly whispered, "I believe you." After that day at the park, we decided to have a special night out. It was our quiet holiday amidst all the chaos going on around us. We went to the roof of one of the tall buildings, where you could see the whole city, illuminated by thousands of lights. Lily sat next to me, wrapped in my jacket, watching the twinkling city lights. She said it reminded her of the stars, and I thought her eyes shone even brighter. We talked about our dreams, about how things could have been, and I admitted for the first time that I wanted nothing more than to be by her side always. After the disclosure, it was difficult to find support at work, but one day I was approached by a colleague with whom we had never really communicated. He quietly said that he had noticed us a long time ago, and that although company policy was strict, he believed that love should not be forbidden. These words struck me, and I felt that we had an ally. I told Lily, and she laughed with relief for the first time in a long time, as if a huge weight had been lifted off her shoulders. After long talks, Lily and I decided to act. We decided we weren't going to hide anymore, and if it cost us our jobs, so be it. We agreed to tell our colleagues about everything openly, to show that we are not afraid to be ourselves. It was risky, but we were sure of our choice. The night before the big day, Lily said she was scared, but her gaze was calm and determined. I promised that I would always be there to support her. The next morning, we gathered in the office conference room where the general meeting was taking place. We decided to take advantage of this opportunity. I stood in front of everyone and talked about our relationship, how we fought to be together. It was hard to admit everything, but when I saw Lily's supportive smile, I knew we were doing the right thing. Some colleagues were surprised, others approved, and this gave us confidence. After our open speech, the management of the company called a separate meeting to decide what to do with us. Those were long and anxious hours of waiting as we sat in the corridor holding hands. I saw Lily nervously tapping her foot on the floor and tried to calm her down. We knew that this could be the end of our career here, but it didn't scare us anymore. We made our choice and were ready to face the consequences. When the door to the office finally opened, the boss came out and said that we could stay to work, but on one condition: we had to be professional at work. I felt a great weight lift off my shoulders, and Lily burst into tears of joy as she hugged me in front of everyone. It was a real happy moment when we realized that our feelings defeated all fears and limitations. After everything that happened, we realized that we can overcome any difficulties. Our relationship became even stronger, and every day we thanked for the opportunity to be together. One evening, sitting in the cafe where we first met, Lily said that now everything looked different, brighter, calmer. I looked at her and understood that all these trials were worth hearing these words from her. Several months have passed since the day we decided not to hide our relationship. We started planning a future together. One evening, I decided to surprise Lily by inviting her to the roof of the same building where we often met during lunch breaks. We stood under the starry sky. I held her hand and started talking about our plans, about the house, about traveling, about everything we dreamed of together. Then I suddenly took out a small box and opened it, showing her the wedding ring. Her eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of happiness. After the engagement, we decided to celebrate it by walking around the evening city. We didn't care what people around us looked at. Now we could be ourselves without fear or doubt. Lily held my hand and we walked down the street, lit by lanterns. At one point we stopped and she hugged me tightly, as if to make sure that this was all reality and not a dream. I could feel her heart beating in time with mine, and it was the best feeling in the world. The day came when we announced our engagement to our colleagues. It was an unexpected surprise for many, and we were even a little worried how they would react. But when we entered the office in the morning, some colleagues smiled and some even started applauding. It was so unexpected that I saw Lily blush with happiness. We exchanged looks and understood. We went through all the difficulties together, and now a new, calmer, and happier stage awaits us. One day after work, Lily was waiting for me outside the office, looking a little excited and mysterious. She asked me to take a walk in the park, and when we sat down on a bench, she gently placed my hand on her stomach. I didn't understand right away, but when I saw how she gently smiled, everything became clear. Lily was pregnant. It was something incredible, and I could not believe that our life would now become even brighter and richer. I lifted her in my arms, circling under the starry sky, and we both laughed with happiness. Our lives changed forever. We were waiting for a child, and this expectation filled every day with a special meaning. We prepared the children's room, bought toys, laughed about choosing a name. One evening, we decided to do a photo session to remember this moment of waiting. Lily was standing in front of the mirror, stroking her round belly, and I came up behind her, putting my arms around her. It was a feeling of warmth and protection and boundless happiness when you know that your entire story, every bit of it, has brought you to this moment. The day came when we saw our baby for the first time. It was unforgettable. A little girl, so gentle and fragile, met us for the first time with her quiet, inquisitive gaze. As Lily held her in her arms, I realized that this whole journey had brought us here, to this moment. I looked at them and felt my heart fill with indescribable happiness and pride. It was a new life we had created together, and I knew it was just beginning. A year after the birth of our daughter, we decided to return to the cafe where we first met. It was like a trip back in time. We sat down at the same table by the window that overlooked the busy street, and I felt like it all flashed back to the moment our lives first crossed. Lily was holding our little daughter in her arms, and I couldn't help but smile as I looked at them. We knew that this journey, full of challenges and happy moments, was just the beginning. On the same day, I decided to give Lily a little surprise. While she was playing with our daughter, I approached her with a small gift package. She looked up in surprise, and I just smiled and asked her to open it. In the package was a small pendant in the shape of a heart, inside which was engraved our daughter's name. I saw Lily discreetly touch him, and her eyes light up. She hugged me, and I knew that moment would be with us forever. In the evening, we returned home, and I saw how our house became filled with new things. Children's toys, little dresses, pictures on the refrigerator. It was part of our new life, and I felt how much we had changed. Lily was putting her daughter to sleep, softly humming a lullaby, and I looked at them and realized that now I had everything I dreamed of. After our little one fell asleep, we sat on the couch with our arms around each other and talked about the future, dreaming of what was yet to come. One morning, when the three of us were sitting at breakfast, our daughter suddenly uttered her first word. It was something very simple, but it was a real breakthrough for us. Lily froze suddenly and then smiled widely, her eyes lighting up as if they had become even more blue. We both started laughing and repeating the word, trying to get her to say it again. It was a simple moment, but so meaningful that I realized it was another one of those things worth living for. We decided to take the first family portrait to immortalize this important stage of our lives. The photographer told us to just be ourselves, and the three of us stood in front of the camera, hugging each other. Lily was holding our daughter, who was waving her arms happily, and I was standing next to them, hugging them both. All of our worries and worries that we went through were reflected in this simple yet so meaningful moment. The photo came out warm and sincere, and now it adorns the wall of our home, reminding us of how far we have come. It was an ordinary evening as we sat on the terrace with hot cups of tea in our hands. Lily quietly watched the sunset while I watched her profile, remembering all our moments together. We talked about all the little events that made up our lives, laughed and cried, wondering how quickly everything went by. It was a simple but at the same time profound feeling to know that all this is reality, and that our life, despite all the obstacles, has become the way we wanted it to be. It's been a few years since we first met in a cafe during our lunch break. This evening we decided to celebrate this anniversary in a special way. I made a reservation at the same cafe, and when Lily and I walked in, her face lit up with a happy smile. Our memories rolled in like waves, and we remembered how shy we were to speak for the first time, how afraid we were to be exposed, and how our hearts pounded when we touched each other for the first time. Now we were a family, and this feeling made this evening special. The day came when our daughter went to school for the first time. She was a little worried, clutching her small backpack, but Lily and I constantly encouraged her. When we got to the school gates, Lily bent down to fix the ribbon in her hair, and I gave her a high five to cheer her up. She smiled even though her small hands still held the backpack tightly. We stood and watched her walk across the yard, turning toward us, and felt another new chapter of our lives begin. One quiet evening, we decided to look at old photos. I brought the album we'd been collecting for years, and we sat on the couch flipping through the pages. There were shots from our first meetings, smiles on the roof of the office, romantic walks in the park, and, of course, the first family portrait. Lily stopped at a photo from our first night at the cafe and said quietly, "I never thought it would all lead us here." I replied that it was the best twist of fate in my life. We sat close, our heads touching, and it was a moment of complete peace and happiness. We decided to celebrate the summer with an evening of cycling with our daughter. A quiet summer evening, when the sun was already touching the horizon, but not yet set, became the perfect background for this walk. We drove past fields and small, quiet streets, and I could see Lily and our daughter competing to be the first to reach the next turn. These were moments of true happiness, when you feel that the whole world is open to you and you can overcome everything together. One evening, when my daughter was already asleep, Lily and I were sitting on the balcony with glasses of wine. She unexpectedly said that she was grateful for everything that had happened in our lives, for the fact that we were able to go through difficulties and create something real and strong. I replied that she helped me become who I am, and that every day with her is the most precious gift. We sat there holding hands, and I realized that no words could fully describe the depth of feeling, but it was not necessary. We understood everything anyway. On this day, we went on a family picnic to celebrate the beginning of a new phase of our lives. We chose a place on a hill with a beautiful view of the city that witnessed our history. Lily spread the bedspread, and her daughter happily ran around, gathering flowers. We sat together, watching the sunset, and I felt how beautiful it is to look into the future with the ones you love. We didn't know what lay ahead of us, but we were sure of one thing. We could handle anything if we were together. Evenings have become the best time of the day. After work, we always played with our daughter. Once she asked to build a big house out of cubes. We started together, and soon the entire carpet was covered in bright blocks. Lily laughed as the house collapsed, and her daughter began to build again. These moments were simple but priceless. They reminded us that happiness is always nearby. We often prepared dinner together. Lily taught her daughter how to make cookies, and now it has become our tradition. Once the whole kitchen was in agony, but the smiles did not disappear from our faces. Lily rolled out the dough, and her daughter painstakingly cut out figures. I stood by watching them and helped with the baking. Everything was so simple and happy. One day, we decided to make a little surprise for our daughter. I gave her a painting kit that she had been dreaming of for a long time. She excitedly unpacked the box and immediately started drawing. Lily and I watched as she painstakingly produced the first lines. Her eyes shone with happiness, and I felt that this moment would forever remain in my heart. Our daughter took part in a school play. It was her first performance, and she was very nervous. We were sitting in the hall holding hands when she came on stage. Her voice was a little shaky, but she sang bolder by the minute. When the play ended, we applauded along with the other parents. Lily couldn't hold back the tears of pride, and I felt my eyes starting to water as well. Every night before going to sleep, we had one tradition: to tell stories. Lily always came up with new stories, and her daughter listened with bated breath. One day, when we were sitting together on the bed, Lily began to tell a story about a little star that was lost, but found its way home thanks to the light of love. The daughter listened attentively, holding her hand. I realized that this story is about us, about our journey and our family. We always spent autumn weekends in the park. One day, the daughter saw the leaves swirling in the wind and began to run, trying to catch them. Lily laughed as I watched her dark hair glisten in the sun. We collected a bouquet of bright leaves, and my daughter wove the leaves into her curls, making a wreath. It was so simple, yet so beautiful. I felt time stand still, giving us this moment of peace. One day we decided to go up to the roof again, where we had met so often before. This time we took our daughter with us. She ran, studying the space, and Lily and I stood and looked at the city, which shone with thousands of lights. She turned to me and said, "We've come a long way." I nodded, hugged her, and we stood like that, holding hands. It was a feeling of completion and happiness. Winter has come, and our city is covered with snow. One day off, we decided to surprise our daughter by going to the ice rink. She had never skated before, and we were a little worried about how she would react. At first, she was afraid, holding on to the side, but Lily and I supported her by holding hands. Later, she boldly took her first steps, and we laughed joyfully when she shouted, "I can." This winter, we realized how important it is to be around when you are learning something new. After the ride, we headed to a little cafe to warm up with some hot chocolate. The daughter excitedly talked about how she managed to ride, and even boasted that now she can make a turn. Lily listened to her quietly, and I could see her smiling. The warmth of the cups warmed our hands, and the atmosphere warmed our hearts. All three of us were sitting at a small table, and it was snowing outside the window. It was one of those moments where you wish time would stop. Preparing for the holidays has always been a special time. One evening we decorated the Christmas tree together. The daughter diligently hung the toys while standing on a small ladder, and Lily helped her keep her balance. We were singing Christmas carols and laughing when the ball accidentally fell and rolled under the couch. When the Christmas tree was ready, we turned off the lights and lit the garlands. The room was filled with a warm shimmer, and the three of us stood side by side, hugging each other, admiring our little winter fairy tale. We celebrated New Year's Eve at home. The daughter fell asleep on the couch before midnight. Lily quietly covered her with a blanket, and I dimmed the lights to make the atmosphere softer. We went out onto the balcony, holding glasses of champagne, and watched the city light up with fireworks. Lily put her head on my shoulder, and I hugged her. We were silent, but there was a special, indescribable harmony in this. As the clock struck midnight, I whispered to her, "Happy New Year, my love." It was a new year and a new beginning. In winter, we built a huge snowman in the yard. The daughter insisted that the snowman should have a carrot nose and a red scarf. Lily brought an old hat, and I found a scarf and a carrot. We made snow globes together, laughed when the snow hit our faces. When the snowman was ready, the daughter proudly called him Mr. Snowball. It was another small moment that united the three of us in simple happiness. When spring came, we decided to plant flowers on our balcony. The daughter chose the brightest and most colorful flowers that she had just found. We dug the ground, planted small plants, and watered them together. Lily taught her daughter how to properly care for flowers, and we watched our balcony come to life, turning into a small garden. Every morning we went out together and watched the flowers grow, and it was like creating a little miracle together. In the spring, the daughters planned their first excursion at school. She was incredibly excited and couldn't sleep the night before, constantly asking if she could see the forest animals. In the morning, Lily helped her pack her backpack, and I tied her a bright yellow scarf. When the bus pulled up, we both stood and waved at her, feeling proud and a little sad that she was growing up so fast. In the summer, we decided to spend a few days by the lake. It was our first family vacation away from the city. The daughter enthusiastically ran along the shore, collecting shells and pebbles. Lily sat on the sand watching her splash in the water. I joined them, and we built sandcastles together. The sun was gently warming, and silence reigned around. Only the splash of water and laughter filled this day. We felt like a real family, and it was so good. That same evening, we lit a small fire near the lake. The daughter sat between us, wrapped in a blanket, and listened enthusiastically as Lily told the story about the stars. We roasted marshmallows on sticks, laughed as they caught fire, and watched the sparks from the bonfire shoot up into the night sky. This evening was special, warm, cozy, and filled with a sense of closeness. Each of us felt in our place. My daughter has always been afraid of water, but during this trip she decided to try to learn to swim. Lily was holding her hands, and I was standing next to her, supporting her on the other side. At first she was scared, but with every minute she became more and more confident. When she managed to swim a few meters, she joyfully shouted, "I did it!" Lily hugged her tenderly, and I felt pride fill my heart. It was another step towards growing up, and we were happy to be around. One summer day, it suddenly started to rain. We were walking through the city, and at first we hid under an umbrella. But then my daughter broke out from under it and started running in the rain, waving her arms. Her laugh was so genuine that Lily and I joined her too. We ran under the drops, jumping in puddles, and at some point I realized that this spontaneous, wet moment was one of the happiest of our lives. We weren't afraid to get wet. We weren't afraid to laugh. We decided to have a small picnic on a hill near the town. Lily prepared delicious sandwiches, and I grabbed a blanket and a thermos with tea. The daughter collected her toys so that they too could enjoy the picnic. As we sat on the hill overlooking the city below, it felt like we were on top of the world. We talked, laughed, shared sandwiches, and even our toy guests got their portions. It was a simple day, but such a special day. We spent one evening at the zoo showing my daughter animals she had only seen in pictures before. She was particularly fond of the giraffes, and we stood for a long time near their enclosure, watching them slowly chew leaves. Lily bought her daughter a small soft toy, a giraffe, which she immediately hugged and did not let go of. When we left the zoo, the sunset began, and everything around was filled with a soft orange light. We stood next to each other, holding our daughter's hands, and watched this magical moment. One evening, we decided to have a marathon of old movies. For the first time, my daughter saw the classic cartoons that Lily and I watched when we were children. She laughed, admired, and asked many questions about the characters. Lily brought over a big bowl of popcorn, and the three of us sat on the couch under a warm blanket. I looked at their smiles and thought how important it is to remember childhood from time to time. It was like returning to something familiar and familiar. At the school, the daughters organized an exhibition of children's drawings. She painted a picture of our family on summer vacation by the lake. We came to the exhibition and were proud to find her drawing, among others. Lily couldn't help but smile when she saw how detailed her daughter depicted our snowman, Mr. Snow. We took a few photos as a memory, and then my daughter explained to everyone who passed by that it was her mom and dad. It was so touching that we both felt our hearts fill with warmth. One morning, my daughter joyfully ran to us and showed that her first milk tooth had fallen out. She was delighted because now, according to her, she will be a real adult. Lily laughed and said she definitely needed a tooth fairy now. In the evening, we put the tooth under the pillow, and in the morning my daughter found a little surprise there. Her joy was boundless, and Lily and I felt like we were part of another important stage in her growing up. On the day off, we went to the playground. The daughter ran between slides and swings, but she liked the rope net the most, on which she tried to climb. At first she was afraid, but we encouraged her, and with each attempt she became braver. When she managed to climb to the top, she waved her arms and joyfully shouted, "I did it!" We applauded, and she beamed with pride. It was a small but important moment when she realized that she could overcome her fear. We decided to visit the cafe where we first met. This time we had our daughter with us, and she ordered her first adult marshmallow cocoa. We sat down at the same table by the window, and everything felt like it was back on track. Lily recalled our first conversations with a smile, and I added that I could never have imagined that this table would become the place where our story would begin. My daughter listened to us with interest as if it were a fairy tale, and I realized that our past and present had merged so harmoniously. The time has come for the daughter's first school ball. She was a little excited, but we helped her choose the most beautiful dress. Lily braided her hair while I stood by and watched my little girl transform into a real lady. When everything was ready, we took some photos to remember this moment. When we got to the school, my daughter ran to her friends, and Lily and I stood holding hands, watching her. She was already growing up, but for us, she always remained our little princess. One evening, we had a family dinner at home. My daughter helped Lily cook, and I set the table. During dinner, Lily announced that we were having another baby. The daughter did not believe it at first, but then her eyes opened wide and she joyfully shouted, "I will be an older sister." We laughed and hugged, and this evening became another beginning of our story. We knew that new adventures lay ahead, and we were happy to meet them together. After the news about the future replenishment, we started preparing the children's room. The daughter was especially enthusiastic, helped to choose colors for the walls and toys. We painted the room together in soft pastel colors, and my daughter painstakingly pasted stickers with various animals on the walls. Lily showed her how to fold small blankets and baby things. All these moments united us even more, and we could not wait for the appearance of a new member of our family. Spring has always been a special time for our family, and this year we decided to plant new flowers in the garden near the house. The daughter enthusiastically chose bright flowers, and Lily explained how to plant them correctly. The three of us worked together, raking the soil and placing the plants in the beds. Even after years, these little flowers will always remind us of that day when we created something alive and beautiful together. One evening, when we were all sitting on the sofa, Lily suddenly stopped and smiled widely. She put my hand on her belly and said, "Feel it." The baby moved for the first time, and it was like a light push. The daughter also came up and carefully placed her little pen, marveling at this new sensation. We sat there in silence, holding hands, and felt the life inside Lily already become part of our family. Finally, the day came when our baby was born. Lily was tired, but incredibly happy. I held her hand when our newborn son was brought to us. The daughter stood nearby, holding her breath, and timidly came closer. She looked at him and whispered, "He's so small." We all stood there, realizing that our family had become even bigger and more complete. When we first came home with the baby, everything felt new and a little strange. The daughter prepared her favorite toys for him to congratulate him. We went together to the children's room, which we had been preparing for so long, and put the baby in his little bed. Lily looked at me and said quietly, "We did it." It was simple, but so important. We knew that a new chapter of our history was beginning, and we were happy that we would write it together. We decided to make the first family portrait with the newborn. It was a simple moment, but very important for us. We all gathered in the garden near the house, where there was a green tree under which we often played. Lily was holding the baby while her daughter stood next to her, proudly holding his little hand. We were all smiling, and at that moment, it felt like time stopped to preserve this moment forever. A few months passed, and our little son started taking his first steps. We were in the living room when he suddenly let go of the furniture and cautiously took a few steps towards Lily. The daughter jumped for joy and shouted, "He is walking!" We all hugged him, laughing and applauding. It was such a small moment, but it felt like a huge step for our whole family. One summer evening, we all went out into the backyard to look at the starry sky. We spread the blanket, lay down next to each other, and my daughter pointed at the stars, trying to find the constellations that Lily told her about. The baby fell asleep on my chest, and I felt Lily take my hand. We looked at the sky and felt that the whole world belonged to us. It was a moment of peace and infinite harmony, when all our dreams seemed so close. Autumn came, and a festival was organized in our city. We all went together to enjoy the evening. My daughter was admiring the multicolored lanterns hanging over the streets, and my son was watching everything from my hands with his eyes wide open. Lily got some cotton candy, and we all ate it together, laughing as it fell to pieces. The festival was filled with lights, music, and laughter. It was a simple but very happy moment when we could forget everything and just be together. Every night before going to bed, we read fairy tales together. The daughter always chose her favorite book, and the son quietly sat on Lila's lap, listening to her voice. Once we read about the adventures of a little bear cub, and my daughter suggested that next time we invent our own fairy tale. Lily smiled and said that was a great idea. It was a simple ritual, but it helped us end the day together, warm and cozy. When the first snow fell, we all immediately went to the yard to make snowmen. The daughter took on the role of designer, indicating how the snowman should look, while the son enthusiastically rolled small snowballs. Lily brought an old red scarf, and we all decorated our snow friend together. When it was ready, we took a family photo next to the snowman. This day reminded us that true happiness is being together and making memories. One spring day, we decided to go on a family hike in the forest. The daughter really wanted to see real squirrels, and the son was just happy to run on the grass. We walked along the forest path, listening to the birds singing and marveling at how many new things there are to see around us. We made a short stop on the lawn, spread out a blanket, and all ate sandwiches together. It was a day of unity with nature and a feeling of true freedom. A year passed, and our son's first birthday came. We organized a small party at home with our closest friends and family. My daughter helped Lily decorate the room with colored balls, and I prepared a cake with one candle. When it was time to blow out the candle, the son was sitting in Lila's arms, a little confused, but smiling. His daughter helped him blow out the candle, and everyone around applauded. It was the first big moment of his life, and we were happy to celebrate it together. One evening, when the children were already asleep, Lily and I decided to go up to the roof of the house. This was the place where our story began, and we often returned here to reminisce about the past. We sat looking at the city, which was lit up with thousands of lights, and Lily said, "How things have changed, and how beautiful it is." I hugged her, and we sat like that, feeling the silence and harmony around us. Our life has become richer, and the moments spent together have become priceless. The summer evening suddenly turned into a rainy one, and we all hid in the house. Rain pattered rhythmically on the windows, creating a soothing background. We decided to arrange a small picnic in the living room. We spread blankets on the floor, brought hot chocolate and cookies. The daughter told her toys fairy tales, and the son quietly fell asleep on Lila's lap. It was one of those nights when you realize that all your dreams have already come true, and now the main thing is to just enjoy the moment. One autumn day, we went to pick up our daughter from school. She ran to meet us with a large pile of sheets in her hands. It turned out that her drawing was chosen for the school calendar. She was delighted, and we too felt proud to see her achievements. Lily carefully picked up one of the drawings, examining every detail, and I lifted my daughter in my arms to let her know we were proud of her. These small moments, when children rejoice in their victories, are so precious because they inspire us too. As Christmas approached, our home turned into a real workshop. Together we baked gingerbread cookies, cut out snowflakes from paper, and hung festive garlands. The daughter helped decorate the Christmas tree, diligently hanging toys, and the son constantly tried to reach the upper branches, although he was still too small. Lily found an old Christmas hat and put it on me, and I, feeling like Santa, began to walk around the room funny. We all laughed and knew it would be a special holiday. We spent Christmas night together, sitting by the tree. The children were unwrapping their presents, and the joy on their faces was priceless. The daughter received a drawing kit, and the son received a teddy bear. Afterwards, we sat by the fireplace with cups of hot cocoa. Lily was softly singing a Christmas carol while I hugged her, looking at our happy faces. It was a moment when everything seemed perfect, and we were grateful to be able to share it with each other. On New Year's Eve, we decided to go outside and watch the fireworks. The children, wrapped in warm mittens, looked up with wide-open eyes, admiring the flashes of color in the sky. Lily was holding her son in her arms, and her daughter was standing between us, holding our hands. When the clock struck 12, we hugged and wished each other a happy new year. It was a moment when it seems that the whole world around is shining, and you stand in its center, together with those you love. This summer, we decided to take a big family trip to the sea. For the children, it was the first experience of a big trip, and they could not contain their excitement. We took everything necessary for a picnic with us, and on the first day we laid out blankets on the beach, listening to the sound of the waves. The children happily ran on the sand, and Lily and I just sat, and watched the sun set over the horizon, creating incredible colors in the sky. It was our first joint event at sea, and it will be remembered forever. In the evening, we lit a bonfire on the beach to sit by the fire like we used to do as children. Lily prepared marshmallows on sticks, and the children enthusiastically roasted them over the fire. The sun constantly turned the stick, trying to find the right angle so that the marshmallow was perfectly toasted. We sang songs, told stories, and enjoyed the warm breeze that brought with it the smell of the sea. The fire crackled quietly, and the sky above us was studded with stars. It was a perfect evening. Before returning home, we decided to once again visit the cafe where it all began. This has already become our little tradition. The children chose their favorite desserts, and we sat down at the same table by the window. Lily looked at me and said softly, "Looks like we've come a long way, haven't we?" I nodded as I held her hand and realized that all these years, all these small moments, had created something incredible. This was our life, and it was beautiful. During our trip to the sea, we decided to do a family photo session on the beach. The children were delighted when the photographer invited them to jump on the waves and run on the sand. Lily wore a light dress that fluttered in the wind, and I carried my son on my shoulders so that he could see the sea better. It was a fun and carefree photo session where we all laughed and enjoyed the moment. When we looked at the pictures, we realized that they are not just photos. They are the history of our family, engraved in each frame. After returning from the sea, we decided to organize a small picnic in the mountains. We found the perfect spot on a high hill overlooking the valley. Lily made sandwiches and lemonade, and her daughter brought her sketchbook to draw the scenery. We spread a blanket together and sat on it, enjoying the fresh mountain air and the wonderful view. The son boldly ran on the grass, and the daughter sat quietly, drawing, as if trying to preserve this moment forever. It was a snowy day, and we all went to the park together. The kids built a big snow fort, and Lily and I helped them reinforce the walls to make the fort look secure. After that, we had a snowball fight, Lily and my daughter against me and my son. Everyone laughed and ran in the snow, red from the cold and fun. Eventually, we collapsed on the snow, gasping for breath, and looked up at the sky, which was so bright and clear. One weekend morning, the children decided to cook breakfast for us. They quietly crept into the kitchen and started making sandwiches, while Lily and I were still asleep. When we woke up, we saw their proud faces, holding plates of not quite perfectly stacked sandwiches and cups of juice. It was the best breakfast in the world, and we thanked them for their efforts. Such moments make our life special because they remind us that it is not what you have, but who you share it with that is important. One spring day, we decided to go to the botanical garden to see the first flowers blooming. My daughter immediately asked to buy her a small primer with the names of plants so that she could learn their names. The son looked at the colorful petals with interest, trying to touch each flower. Lily showed them different types of plants, and I took pictures to save these moments forever. It was a day where we enjoyed the beauty of nature and felt part of something bigger. We decided to end our day at the amusement park with an evening ride on the carousel. The children chose a horse, and I helped my son sit on one of them. Lily sat down next to her daughter, and we all laughed as the merry-go-round started moving. The light of the merry-go-round reflected in their eyes, and it seemed that this moment would last forever. When the trip was over, the children asked again, and we couldn't refuse them. It was the perfect end to a perfect day. One day, when it was raining and we stayed at home, we decided to create a picture together. Lily spread a large sheet of paper on the floor, and we all began to draw. My daughter drew the sea, my son the sun. Lily added flowers, and I drew our house. It was like creating our own little world where everyone contributed. After it was finished, we hung the picture on the wall in the living room to remind us of this warm day spent together. Spring has come, and we decided to have a family bike ride. The road passed through a green park where flowers bloomed and birds sang. My daughter was riding confidently in front on her little bike, and I was riding next to Lily, who was carrying my son in a child's seat. It was a day where we could just enjoy the movement and beauty of nature around. It felt like we became even closer by sharing these simple but happy moments. One day we decided to get up early in the morning and go to the beach to meet the dawn. The children woke up a little sleepy, but as soon as they saw that we had prepared warm blankets and hot chocolate for them, they were immediately happy. We sat on the sand, wrapped in blankets, and watched the sun rise slowly over the horizon. It was one of those moments when everything seems calm and beautiful, and there is only silence and a feeling of boundless happiness. We decided to plant a tree in the backyard so the kids could see it grow with them. The daughter chose a small oak, and the son happily dug a hole for it with a shovel. We all planted a tree together, watered it, and promised to take care of it. This was the moment when we realized how important it is to create something that will last for the future. We hoped that one day the children would grow up and continue this tradition. One evening, we decided to have a family cooking show where everyone prepared their own dish. The daughter decided to make a fruit salad, and the son was happy to put cookies on the plates. Lily prepared the main course, and I helped everyone, laughing when the kids accidentally mixed the ingredients together, not as planned. The kitchen was a mess, but it was the funnest mess. When everything was ready, we sat down at the table and enjoyed our joint creation, savoring every bite. It was a warm autumn day, and we decided to go to the field to fly kites. The daughter eagerly unwound the cord, while the son tried to hold the snake in his small hands. Lily stood by, helping them direct the snake, and I ran over to help launch it into the sky. When the snake took off, the children clapped their hands happily, and Lily and I just looked at them and enjoyed the moment. The sky was bright blue, and everything felt light and carefree. One evening, while we were sitting at home, the first snow began to fall. We all went to the window together and watched as the big white snowflakes quietly settled on the ground. The children were delighted because this meant that soon they would be able to build snowmen and play snowballs. Lily took her son in her arms, showing him how the snowflakes fell smoothly, and my daughter squeezed my hand, impatiently waiting for the morning to run out into the yard. It was a quiet but special moment where we could enjoy the simple wonder of nature. One evening, the children decided to arrange a family concert for us. The daughter prepared her small drum, and the son a plastic guitar. Together, they stood on an improvised stage in our living room and began to play, while Lily and I sat on the sofa, loudly applauded and cheered them on. After the concert, the children bowed respectfully, and we gave them our loudest applause. It was one of those evenings that always leave warm memories. The day of our anniversary came, and we decided to celebrate it with a quiet evening at home. The children diligently prepared a small surprise for us. They drew a large card on which they wrote, "Happy Anniversary, Mom and Dad." Lily was preparing dinner, and I was setting the table when the children ran into the room with a card and flowers. It was so touching that we couldn't hold back tears of joy. We sat down to dinner together, and it was one of those dinners when you feel that life is truly beautiful. In the evening, we took out an old photo album that we had been creating since the beginning of our relationship. We sat together on the sofa, going through page after page. The children looked at our old photos with interest: the first date, the wedding, their birth. My daughter laughed, pointing to pictures where I was with a strange hairstyle, and Lily explained each event to her. It was a moment when we all shared memories that strengthened our family and showed how far we have come. Winter has come, and we decided to go to a small forest park to spend the day among the snowy trees. The children excitedly ran between the paths, leaving their footprints in the snow, while Lily and I walked slowly, holding hands. The forest was quiet, only the crunching of snow underfoot, and children's laughter could be heard. When we reached a small clearing, we decided to stop and made hot chocolate in a thermos. It was a moment of peace and unity with nature, when you feel part of something big and beautiful. On a cold winter evening, we decided to play board games. Lily took out an old box with a favorite game from our childhood, and we all sat down at the big table in the living room. The daughter quickly learned the rules and began to drag all the chips to her side, and the son tried to throw the dice in a funny way, although sometimes they flew in the wrong direction. It was an evening of laughter, intrigue, and a real family game that united us even more. One winter evening, when the cold wind was howling outside, we gathered around the fireplace and decided to read fairy tales. The children listened with their mouths open as Lily read the story about the brave prince and his adventures. I sat next to him, holding my son in my arms, and I felt how we were all immersed in a magical world of fantasy. It was a moment of warmth and closeness, when you forget everything around you and just enjoy the story with the ones you love. When spring came, we decided to update our balcony and plant new flowers. The children chose various colorful plants, and Lily and I prepared pots. It was a day full of sunshine and a light spring breeze. The children painstakingly poured soil into pots, and we helped them plant plants. Now, every time we went out on the balcony, we could see our flowers growing, and it always reminded us how wonderful it is to create something together. On a summer evening, when the air was warm and light, we went to the forest near our house to catch fireflies. The children had never seen them twinkle in the dark before, and were delighted when soft green lights began to appear around them. We gave them small jars so they could catch some fireflies and look at them up close. It was like a magical fairy tale where everything around shines and shimmers, creating the feeling of a fairy tale night. One summer day, we decided to visit a small farm outside the city to show the children how animals live. The daughter enthusiastically fed the little goats, and the son carefully stroked the rabbits. Lily showed them how to milk the cow, and I held the children in my arms so they could see better. It was a day of discovery and delight when we all enjoyed nature and simple village life. At the end of the day, we bought fresh berries and returned home with full baskets. At home, we decided to try something new, to bake bread together. Lily prepared all the ingredients, and the children diligently kneaded the dough, even if it stuck to their hands. We laughed as flour flew all over the kitchen and watched the dough slowly rise in the oven. When the bread was ready, we sliced it and enjoyed warm, fresh slices with butter. It was one of those moments where everything feels real, and you feel that this is what happiness is. The children have long dreamed of spending the night in tents, and we decided to organize a small camping site right in our garden. We pitched our tents, lit a small flashlight, and made hot tea in thermoses. The daughter tried to tell scary stories, but every time she started laughing, and the son hid in a blanket, pretending to be afraid. We all lay side by side, looking at the starry sky through the opening of the tent, and it was a moment when the world seemed so simple and limitless. On a summer day, we decided to paint the entire sidewalk in front of the house with colored chalk. The children drew large flowers, the sun, and even small figures of ourselves. Lily bent down and started to draw a small castle, while I helped the children draw colored paths to it. When everything was ready, we all stepped back to look at our big, bright painting. It was so simple, but at the same time so beautiful, and we were proud of our joint creation. Her daughter's first day of school was special, and she was looking forward to the school bus. Lily helped her check that everything was in place in her backpack, while I held my son in my arms, telling him that my sister was leaving for the day but would be back. When the bus pulled up, we all waved goodbye to her, and she, a little worried, climbed the steps and sat by the window. It was a new phase in her life, and we knew she was ready for it.